Folks, it's Fernando doing our video for the More Survivalists, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the US elections, Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I suggest you stick around. This is going to be one of those longer videos, and you know what, the thing is, you probably are not going to be liking what I'm saying here. I still think it's necessary. I still think you'll get something out of it. Hopefully you'll get something out of it and understand the message I'm trying to get through in this video. It's sad to see some of the things happening, but let's get right to it. And yeah, have a little bit of patience, stick around. Hopefully you will see things at least for a moment from my perspective, which I think will be helpful. This is an email that I got from Michelle. It says, "Hi Furfel, been reading your blog for years. You have opened my eyes on so many levels. Thank you. I'm wondering who you are voting for and why. Can you really trust Donald Trump? How close is the US from imploding like Argentina? Months? Years? Give us your forecast. Again, thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts, feelings, impressions, knowledge, Michelle." Well, first of all, Michelle, thanks for your email. I mean, I'm very glad that I'm helping in any way. So thanks for that. So regarding your questions, who am I voting for? Well, I'm not a US citizen, so I'm not voting. So that's that. Can you really trust Donald Trump? I don't know. Can you trust him? Honestly, ask yourself. Can I trust Donald Trump? Would I trust Donald Trump? I think the answer is clearly no. I would not trust him. He's not a person that I would definitely trust by any means. Again, I know that a lot of people will be pissed with me because I'm not endorsing Donald Trump, and I don't think he's a trustworthy person. I would not vote for Donald Trump by any means. I would not vote for Hillary Clinton by any means. I think Hillary Clinton is not a trustworthy person either. I actually think Hillary Clinton is not only not trustworthy, I think there's something, very wrong with her on several levels. She's she has this. I mean, she's in the pocket. Hillary Clinton is in the pocket of Wall Street from every possible angle. She's just going to be a puppet of those that are already running things. But the same thing goes for Donald Trump at the end of the day. You're being presented with this false idea of choice. You're being presented with this false idea of freedom and democracy, when you're really just being presented the two options that people running things already pre-selected for you. Okay, if I go and give you these two, I already selected these two, and I'm giving you the false impression of freedom and democracy when these candidates have already been pre-selected. I don't like Donald Trump. I think he's actually a pretty awful person. I think Hillary Clinton is just as bad or worse. That doesn't mean... Now, the key thing here, I don't know if you noticed, it may be worse, all right? Hillary Clinton may be worse, so I'm voting for Donald Trump, which is what millions of people are thinking of right now. That's really not a good idea at all. Voting for the lesser of two evils is not a solution. And again, a little bit of a longer video. I'm going to be explaining some of the things that happened to us in Argentina, which are actually very similar to what you're seeing. Going back like 25 years or so back in time, in the case of Argentina, we had Carlos Menem as our president. Carlos Menem was, you could say he was business friendly because he was, pretty much the open market, free trade capitalist kind of guy, which, we all like the idea of freedom and capitalism. At least I like the idea of what really capitalism means, the right to own property and means of developing wealth, being privately owned. I completely understand that certain things have to be regulated, because if not, some people would take advantage of that, but mostly I believe in that. So this, at least on this aspect, a guy like Carlos Menem who was very much a very business-friendly type of person with most corporations that worked in Argentina. Now, the problem with Carlos Menem was that he was extremely corrupt as well. He was a very corrupt person. So, in spite of being business-friendly, there was also always something besides just business. There was always, that aspect of corruption. So when you have a corrupt president like we had with Carlos Menem, things just don't work only because he's business friendly or because he's a capitalist. Capitalist does not make you a good person. Being a good person makes you a good person. All right. It's not the same thing, and the exact same works on the other side of the spectrum. If you're a socialist, communist type of person that believes that the means of production and and everything should be owned by the state, that doesn't make you a good person either. And we can discuss different political ideas, different economic ideas, but the first thing above all that you need is good people. If you don't have good, honest people, it doesn't really matter what they stand for, because they're not going to be working for you. So we went from Carlos Menem, which was a complete disaster. For a few years, he had this false sense of wealth in the country. Everything seemed to be going very well, but it was false, because it wasn't real growth of the country. There wasn't any real wealth. It was just the country going into debt through different channels, which would be very long to explain, but basically the country was going into debt because of its economic system, and people would eventually have to pay for that party. All right. So after the 90s came 2001, when the country basically collapsed. After it collapsed, people realized that Carlos Menem had not been a good president. He had been a guy that was business-friendly, capitalist, and all those great things, but he hadn't been a good president. He had been very corrupt, and he had ruined the country. So what you have is that people, again, very long story made short, is we ended up with a president that was on the other side of the spectrum. Néstor Kirchner was, at least in terms of his outspoken political views, he was the socialist, quasi-communist type of guy who was supposed to represent everything that Carlos Menem did not. Okay, right-leaning, we went from from far right to far left. The only thing in common between these two is that they were both corrupt guys. And it didn't work either. It actually was worse. But we were presented with the option of voting for Menem again. So we had to choose between the one that we already knew was bad, which was Carlos Menem, right on the far right, and we were presented with this new option of going far left with Néstor Kirchner, and then Cristina Kirchner after him. So we thought, we know this guy sucks, so we're going to be voting. I mean, I didn't vote myself because I saw this quite clearly. I didn't vote for either one of these. But people, the majority, voted to go with the Kirchners. After going far right, far left, it was even worse. You know why? Because we already voted someone that we knew was corrupt, and we didn't care. Because we believed that voting for the lesser of two evils at that point was the best thing to do. And that cost us 12 years of disaster and pain and suffering, and far worse, poverty than what we had seen before. This does not mean that Carlos Menem was a good president or he would have been a good choice. Neither was Cristina or Néstor Kirchner. They were both awful. What we should have done is not vote for either one. So who am I voting for? As I said before, I'm not voting for either one because I'm not American. I'd probably vote for Gary Johnson, because that would be the way of using my vote so as to say, I'm not buying into this idea of this duality of having to choose Democrat or Republican, because if the Republican you're offering me is as bad as the Democrat you're offering me, I'm not going to be voting for either one. I'm going to be voting for Gary Johnson, who what I've seen of him, doesn't seem like a bad guy. I mean, if I had to choose between those three as an actual president, I would choose Gary Johnson. Has some things that are maybe not as good as you would like. Many of the things that I've read regarding his awful Second Amendment, his stance is not as bad as some people think it is. And I haven't looked into it because, again, since I'm not voting, but I would definitely go if I had to vote right now, because it's actually, in many ways, it's a very safe vote. Because on one hand, he's not going to be getting elected, all right? But that doesn't mean you're throwing away your vote. It just means that you're putting a vote to the third guy, meaning you're making very clear that none of the other two are a good option. That's the way in which you fix things. Right now in Argentina, we have a president that we're finally very bad shape. Finally proud of having, at least I am, which is Mauricio Macri. Mauricio Macri was born out of the crisis of 2001 when Cristina Kirchner, corrupt, an awful thief of a person, despicable in any possible way. Again, the word corruption, they're not good people. They're evil, corrupt, bad people. So when people complained against Cristina Kirchner, she said, you know what, if you, and Mauricio Macri as governor of, as mayor of Buenos Aires was one of those that was complaining. Mauricio Macri running the city of Buenos Aires was saying, Cristina Kirchner is working against me, she's just trying to screw us up, she's doing this and that, she's all these awful things. And when Mauricio Macri would said that, Cristina Kirchner said, you know what, if you don't like it, create your own political party and win the elections and become president yourself. And you know what? You have to be very careful with your words, because that's exactly what he did. And something very interesting happened was that Mauricio Macri slowly became more popular. He's more of a right, but he's more of a, to be honest, he's a center type of person, which I kind of like, because he's willing to take from either side and all across the political spectrum, whatever works well for people. He's not close. And this is a key aspect of what's happening right now with the U.S. elections, is the hate, the division among yourselves. I'm sure you're fighting even within your family because of this. And this is the exact same thing that the Kirchner did in Argentina. They managed to cut the society in two, and people fighting among themselves. So when Mauricio Macri became an option, it was very hard to win that election, because for 12 years the Kirchner had been running things in such a way that they created poverty and made sure that people needed them for their with their handouts. The money they were handing out to poor people, the poor people that they had created themselves, that welfare state of you're useless, you're not good, you don't have a job, but I'm giving you money to subsist. That's one of the ways in which you ensure votes. Now, actually being very proud of what Argentina did as a nation, they voted against that. Even poor people that really needed that money to subsist, they voted against that. It's rare, especially in such a poor country, to vote against the welfare state. It really takes a process of political growth, which Argentina had for 12 years of destruction. People learned the hard way what they had to do, which is vote for someone that is not corrupt, that is more level-headed, and is not extreme in his political views, and is willing to take from anyone that has a good idea, and if it helps people, okay, we'll do that, all right? I don't care your past political history. If you come here with a good proposition and we can make it work and it really helps people, okay, we're all for that. That's a level of political maturity that most people right now in the United States, they don't have it, because they haven't gone through the crap we did in Argentina. Right now, you're in the United States with this very divided political view. You have the Hillary guys, you have the Clinton, the Trump guys, and they're very much fighting. Again, the division in society that you see these days in America, you haven't seen before for a very long time. And it's quite sad. Not only is it sad, it's very destructive. And when I mean it's destructive, it's not constructive in what you actually need in politics. So this is done. I mean, Hillary Clinton or Trump will win. The good news, if there's any good news, is that really nothing will change much. I don't favor either one of them. I mean, I cannot say, okay, this one is less bad than this other one, all right? Because I think they're basically both bad options. And they're both options being presented by the existing power, right? So nothing really is going to be changing, at least not much. To be completely honest, Trump has, of course, more of a has a worse international perspective, pretty much outside of the United States. Everyone thinks that Trump is a big clown and a big danger because he's basically like a man-child in charge of the largest world power. I think that Hillary Clinton has many things that are just as bad or worse going for her. Again, these guys will be still puppets, guys doing the things that they've been hired to do. And they're going to be representing their people, the elites. They're going to be representing them just like Obama did. All right, it's not going to be any massive change. But people in the United States will have to go through this process and finally, for once, after many years of division, especially these last few years, understand that the only way forward is getting rid of this division and working together and not being nasty to one another. If you understand that, if you finally get through this hate and division that's going on right now in the United States, you will start getting into this path of a political maturity in which you will finally understand that when you're giving these two options, you're not giving much of an option at all. You're just choosing between pre-selected candidates. I think that the future of the United States is in the third candidate, whoever that may be, but it has to come it has to be a grassroots movement in which someone, for once in many years, someone that is not an elite puppet, someone that's not in the pocket of Wall Street and all these corporations, finally someone honestly rises from all that crap, and you know what, now you're the president, now you're going to be working for the actual people of the United States. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Again, I understand you're not going to be happy with it. If you're a Trump voter, you're going to be thinking I'm an idiot. If you're a Hillary voter, you're going to be thinking I'm a fool as well. Understand the following. I have seen what you're seeing right now. I've seen it for 12 years. And if you go back to when Obama was reelected, I was telling you, it's all here on YouTube, Obama re-election, I said that Hillary Clinton would be president after him. You know, maybe I'm not so far off what could actually happen. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Maturity, stop fighting, learn to listen and learn to argue without getting all personal in your attacks. That's the only way in which you will fix things. Take care, have a great day. See you on our next video.